This is here.
Oh, shoot.
What?
They were all there. I hadn't. I thought
Yep.
I had left the door open, but I hadn't.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hey, Jay.
Okay. As I recall, I think George said he was out tonight. Is that
Yes.
folks' memory? Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think then we have everybody we're going to. So I'll call the Finance Committee to order at 6:31. Let's see. I think we'll start with reviewing some minutes and let's see if I can share my screen. Oh, not yet. Okay. I think I might have to wait for Becky to come back.
Go in here.
So we have minutes from October 15th and October 22nd. That was the joint meeting with the select board. Hey, Becky, can you give me sharing
Yes, I'm
privileges?
sorry.
Yeah. No, it's fine. All right. So let's see. Now, I think it's possible, I was just looking at my email earlier, that the October 15th minutes might have only been sent to me. Did the whole committee get them?
Oh, I did get them.
Okay. Susie got them. I'm going to share my screen so we can kind of follow along in case folks didn't receive them. Okay, let's see.
Is that the selectmen's meeting that we're talking about?
No,
No,
this is
okay.
the meeting before that.
Okay.
All right. I think George might have inadvertently only sent these minutes to some of the email addresses from the committee. So I'm going to kind of scroll through these slowly here. Okay, Susie.
After attending the 10/22 meeting, I felt like the minute here that said C, must be 4C, the top of the page. I'm not sure that that's what they asked us. That says that they asked us to consider increasing the balance of the reserve fund to prepare for the need to cover the interim administrator and the potential hires.
Yeah.
But I
So
don't think they thought that.
yeah, I think you're right. And I think what happened is that there were sort of two topics kind of being discussed, and kind of got conflated at our meeting.
Yeah.
One was about this notion that there might need to be some additional funding for the town administrator line to cover the costs of both an interim TA and benefit pay that Becky has accrued, and potentially a new TA that might be offered a higher salary. So that was sort of one issue, and that is what I think we discussed with the select board. And then there was a separate issue, which was a concern, just a more general concern that our reserve fund was too low, and that we wouldn't be in a great position to address that issue as well as others that may come up. So it wasn't that the select board prompted us to consider increasing our reserve fund. It was really an internal discussion. So I think my suggestion here, and I would open this up to the rest of the committee, is to say something like the finance committee discussed increasing the balance of the FY25 finance committee reserve fund, or requesting an increase to the FY25 finance committee reserve fund at the upcoming special town meeting to better
Isn't
prepare.
that what's in 5?
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I mean, that's a discussion that really reflects
Yeah,
what we did,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
I do think we thought we were also preparing for what the costs of the transition would be. And then when we got
Yeah.
to the meeting, we saw that in fact, the select board prepared for that.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So I think the simplest thing to do here would be to strike C from this section of the minutes. Because it's really reflected in
Right.
that discussion's reflected in item 5. Do folks agree with that? Or? All right, I'm seeing some heads nodding. Bob.
Yeah, I just want to agree with you on that because we were not aware that the select board was going to ask for an article to cover transition costs in the line. So we had a discussion about this transition, and it underlined the need for us to increase our balance because, first of all, we all agreed that it was sort of underfunded because of budgetary concerns last year. And now we had these special developments which were likely to cost the town money. So it would have been prudential to goose our thing. So we decided to go to the select board with this idea that they would sponsor an article to increase our balance. We didn't know they were going to sponsor a separate article, as Susie points out. So it shouldn't be in the minutes at all.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we solved this by just striking that section from the minutes. Okay. Should I continue scrolling here for folks who didn't get a chance to look at this?
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Any other, Bob? Oh, that's from before. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Susie?
We might put down when it says our next meetings are October 22nd. I don't know. It said with the select board. It should say
Yeah.
maybe with the select board there.
All right. Was there on this item 5B, the FY25 news growth is much higher than anticipated. Was there actually a number that was thrown out? There was
Yeah,
April? Do you
we
remember what that
received-
was?
Yes, we were told at the assessors meeting that we received about $200,000 in additional revenue from National Grid from the upgrade of the electrical wire,
Got it.
electric
Okay.
poles. So it's about
So-
$200,000.
Okay, but that was discussed at an assessors, a meeting of the assessors. Okay,
Right.
so there wasn't a concrete number that was discussed at our FinCom meeting, as folks recall, right? I had a vague memory,
Right.
but I hadn't written it down. So yeah.
I think we threw out that $200,000 as a real number. I mean, that is a
Okay.
real number.
Okay, all right, all right. Well, I think we can leave the minutes. That's good to know, though. Okay. Any other comments or suggestions about these minutes? All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the October 15th minutes as amended.
Second.
Okay. So who's going to start voting now that
Oh,
George is not
aye.
here?
Hemingway, I.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Salvador, I.
And Stein, aye.
Okay. All right, so motion approved 6-0.
I'll take the minutes for this meeting if that's what you're.
Oh, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you. So the only changes, well,
Yeah.
I can send them to you, but
Great.
yeah,
Then I'll submit them
What
to
else?
Grace.
perfect. Okay, and then next up is the minutes from select board joint meeting with the select board on October 22nd. I think these did go out to everybody either today or yesterday. I
Yeah,
can't
today.
remember. Yeah, today, yeah.
Fast turnaround.
Yeah. So Susie, I think you did a good job of summarizing what was kind of a complicated discussion here. Does anyone have questions or suggestions? So, did we take, we took a vote on the the select board's proposed warrant, right?
Did we?
Yes, I
thought
believe
we
we
did.
did.
Oh, I remember. Okay,
Yeah, we did.
So I think that ought to go
yeah.
to 1A. Wait,
Oh, yeah.
or maybe it could be 1C actually.
1C. FinCom voted.
Right, to recommend approval of the proposed warrant article.
Okay.
Bob?
Can I ask a question, just a technical question? Should the word be reoccur or recur?
Ask Kathy.
I
He will
I
help
think-
us.
I would have written recur, but I don't know. I might be mistaken.
think either one is acceptable.
That does it then. The oracle has spoken.
Okay, so let's see. Wait, let me. Okay. Committee voted to recommend approval of the proposed warrant article. that sufficient? Yeah. Okay. I can't remember what our specific vote was. Were there five? Well, I guess I can figure. I remember it was unanimous, but so we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, it was just Troy. So I'm just going to put 6-0. Okay. Okay. Any other suggestions? All right, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from October 22nd as amended.
Second,
All right, Bob.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, I.
Cashew, aye.
Mosher, aye.
Salvador, I.
And Stein, I.
Okay. All right. So Susie, I will send you those two revised minutes. Okay. Next up. So just town manager transition. So I think, well, first of all, were there any sort of additional thoughts that folks didn't have a chance to articulate or occur to them after the October 22nd meeting regarding the plan? Becky, is there an update on free cash certification? I saw your email that you forwarded from Gail, and it looked like it was close, but I wasn't sure if that email meant that it was actually certified.
No, it's not certified, but it's been
Okay.
submitted, so I imagine before, by next week, we should hear back.
Okay. All right, so it's looking likely that it will be certified by special town meeting?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. And the fact we have a special town meeting was noted by Gail. So, and this is the time period when they give priority to people having special town meetings. So we think that should help get it done. And potentially it could be done by, I don't want to say Friday, but early next week,
okay, great.
which will still keep us in good shape.
Okay, all right. And then as far as transition, are there any sort of updates on your timeline, or you're still operating on the same assumptions from our last discussion?
My timeline is the same.
Okay.
And I do have a signed contract at this point. I put in my resignation letter today. Well, I kept trying today, but it was almost tonight by the time I got it done.
Okay.
So the select board has received it, and so things are moving ahead as planned.
Okay, got it. Well, congratulations on the formal steps that are being taken. Okay, and I think the only other sort of follow-up is, I guess, at a time that you sort of think is appropriate, you'll inquire about the possibility of supporting Shutesbury on a rare part-time sort of like consulting basis if the need arises. Is that something you're still planning on asking about?
I did include that in my Sunderland contract if anyone asks for support. At this point, the select board has not done that.
Okay.
So, but if you have questions, AJ,
Mhm.
I guess I want to make sure that I'm communicating with the interim town administrator, not stepping
Yeah.
on his toes, but
Of course, yeah.
I'd be, I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay,
that you have.
got it. All right, Susie?
And in our discussion on now I'm lost in time, probably the 22nd or the 15th, the comment was made that would be as a consultant, and that we would think in terms of paying her for her time.
Of course.
So that should be part of the framework.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Okay. All right. Well, okay. I don't think there's too much else to discuss on manager transition. I think, oh, well, I guess just a couple of like little logistics things. So it did, I thought Melissa's information that there might be a Zoom option that would allow each sort of committee chair to have its own ability to post well, yeah, I guess to run Zoom meetings. I thought that was a really good idea. So I hope that that actually can happen. And I appreciated, Becky, that in your email about the free cash certification, you had mentioned to Gail that it'd be good for her to kind of get to start CCing me on that kind of correspondence. So if you could continue to just remind her with things like, I guess, expense reports would be the obvious one. That would be great. Just so that when we do get to the point where you're working in Sunderland, we won't miss anything important. Okay.
Make sure. And
All right.
I was not aware, Melissa has not given me the details on which Zoom account that is. Grace and I attempted to add the email function to our current accounts and it did not work. It failed.
Okay.
So I think the thing is finding the right account and potentially transferring to that account. But yeah, but Melissa didn't indicate which kind, so we'll have to keep working on that one.
Okay. Got it. All right. Okay. I think what we ought to do next is review the special town meeting warrant. Let's see.
So late this afternoon, the non-binding resolution request came in. I'm not sure the version that I had sent out earlier does not have that yet, but I'll be emailing that to you.
Okay.
And I'll be putting in your recommendations into that version that has the 6th article.
Okay. Is that something you can either sort of read or share with us for when we get to that article?
Sure.
The
It's
text
a
that will.
non-binding resolution about pollinators.
Okay.
So it's all, it's
Is there
all
Is it,
related.
is there a fiscal element to that or?
There is not.
Okay.
Okay. So
And
then
it's
we don't.
non-binding, so there's
Yeah.
no long-term impact.
Okay.
It's
And
requesting that people think this way and behave this way.
okay. All right. Well, thanks for clarifying that. Then I don't think it's something that we need to take up during this meeting. Okay. And Jess, I think maybe for Kathy's benefit, just what we're about to do now is whenever we have a annual town meeting or a special town meeting, one of our responsibilities as a finance committee is to have deliberation about any warrant article that has a financial implication to it and vote on whether we as a committee recommend approval of that article. And then that our recommendation actually gets written in as a sort of a little note to every one of the warrant articles. You may have noticed that at town meeting before. So that's what we're about to do now. So let's take a look at Article 1. I'll just read it. To see if the town will vote to transfer $25,000 from free cash or stabilization for the police department to be used to fund a private duty detail account pursuant to Mass General Law, blah, 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 for the purpose of making timely payments to officers for their private duty detail work or take any action relative thereto. Becky, can you explain? I'm not even sure I understand what this term means, the private duty detail work. What is that referring to?
The police department engages in, they can be hired by National Grid or other contractors to patrol, assist their tree crews that are out on the road, or their wiring guys that are up in buckets. And
Mhm.
that's called a private duty detail.
Okay, I understand.
what-
Do traffic work or something when there's construction. Okay, got it.
Yeah, so they're the guys by the side of the road, and it's
Mhm.
pretty much has been limited to police officers in Shutesbury. There is some accommodation where that could change and broaden potentially to firefighters or other town
Insured.
volunteers. But
Mhm.
the issue here for the police department is when they're doing a lot of details, say in the summer for different tree crews, the checks that they receive, even when the police chief is administrating as quickly and responsively as possible, it'll still take up to 2 or 3 months to get checks.
Mhm.
And we've had very intensive details because of the phase 3 electric line trimming and preparation last summer. So can become very discouraging for the officers who are putting in all that time.
Mhm.
And they've been asking for quite a while. So this was something in this year's contract that the negotiating team, that included you, right, Bob?
Yes.
They approved. So, that being the case, we are, the select board is putting this forward and looking, to finance committee to recommend the financing source.
Okay.
And you've done your best job to do that.
Okay, so then just to clarify, and I see your hand up, Bob, I'll just, if I could ask one clarifying question first. So when payments are received by these third parties that are contracting our officers, they would fund
Second.
this this
They'll flow into
account?
this account, yes.
Okay, got it. All right,
So
that's what I
what'll
just wanted to
happen
make sure.
now
Yeah.
is, so typically oh, I'm sorry, Bob, did you want to say something first?
You go ahead.
So typically when the work is done, the police chief is notified by the contractor. She reaches out and brings somebody in to do the work. The work is then, those hours are reported to the police chief, and she bills the contractor. Then the contractor pays the town. And it's
Mhm.
that step that is typically can take up to 2 months.
Okay.
And we're already on a 2-week cycle, so nothing happens instantly.
Yeah, of course.
So that 2-week cycle kind of elongates the 2 months. But
Okay.
but now that when the chief puts in the warrant to get paid, she can put it in directly. It'll get paid out of this account. And then the funds from the contractor can come in later and reimburse the account.
Got it. Okay. All right. So this will be a new line in the budget and right.
No.
Well, it won't be, it's a fund,
Oh, well,
so it'll be in the funds.
right. Okay.
And
Right.
being part of
Revolving
the
fund.
budget.
Right. Got it. Okay, Bob.
Just to elaborate on what Becky has already pointed out, that one simple fact is that this is one-shot deal for $25,000 to establish the fund, which should be maintain something like that balance over time if everybody pays, which they eventually do. But the officers can get their compensation in a more timely manner. This is something we discussed at great length during our negotiations. We agreed with the police union and the officers that we would put this before the town meeting and that we would make a bona fide, good faith attempt to get it through. but the agreement did include a very clear description of that this was $25,000 to set up the account, and there'd be no more money coming. And if the police, there's a lot of variables here, and one of them is that the police chief, if he or she is not diligent in submitting bills to these companies, then that account could be, depleted very rapidly. So we expect Kristen will be diligent, but we don't know what's going to happen in the future. So we are concerned about that particular issue. So I think we're protected if we fund this. It's a reasonable thing to do, I think, from the standpoint of the officer's interest, but there are some sort of downsides to it. But I think we're somewhat protected considering that this is a one-shot deal, and we'll see how it goes.
All right, Susie?
Is there a reason this isn't called a revolving fund? Is it different than revolving funds?
I think because, I mean, it's similar to a revolving fund, but there is no, in a revolving, I guess, there's not, the fee source is not, I mean, typically a revolving fund is based on fees that are charged by a specific committee or group. We're not charging fees here. We're not, the revenue is coming from an outside party, similar to fees, but it's different.
Okay.
Jim?
Yes, who monitors whether these payments from National Grid or the Asplin Tree or whomever, who monitors whether those checks are actually coming in or not? I mean, this is sort of a bookkeeping function, and often these companies have to be reminded or harassed for payment if it's past due, that kind of a thing. Is this Kristen's duty or someone else's?
Kristen has been the one that, because she, she's the one billing the contractor. So she has sent out that bill and she's waiting for the check to come in. It'll come
Okay.
in to her. So she's monitoring the accounts receivable on this. Yes.
Okay, so she's okay. So she's doing all the accounting,
Well,
essentially, not
she's just
Gail.
monitoring the AR, but specifically, what person was paid for which one, it comes down to a function of the treasurer.
Okay.
Becky, I see your hand up. Did you have additional comments you wanted to make?
Could you take Kathy first? Because I forgot one question after.
Okay, all right, sure. Kathy?
When we bill third parties, do we establish the terms? Do we have specific, pay within net,
Yeah.
however many?
Yeah, net
So
30,
that's- Okay.
never happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Mhm.
We try though, huh?
Yeah, well, we try.
Okay.
And
Okay. Anything else?
language.
All right. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion, the Finance Committee recommends Article 1. Oh, I wondered if we're gonna be able to take off the stabilization. Reference.
I think we need to keep it on until the free cash is certified. I mean, and it's gonna be posted by then, so.
But when we meet the floor, we'll probably just talk about it as free cash and say we're not gonna need stabilization.
Yes, and most likely when the select board makes their motion, at that point, they will say free cash.
Okay. So I make the motion, we recommend Article 1.
I'll second that. Any other discussion? Okay, Bob?
Yeah, Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Salvador, I.
And Stein, aye.
Okay. That's 6. 0. Finance Committee recommends. Okay, Article 2, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $136,000 from the CPA undesignated fund balance to the Amherst Regional Public Schools for the purposes of the rehabilitation, renovation, and improvement of the track and field athletic facilities at the Amherst Regional High School, an open space recreation project as described in the Amherst Regional Public Schools August 20th, 24 application to the Shutesbury Community Preservation Committee. Okay, so, we haven't talked about the track for a little while, but I think that at the last time we did talk about it, I think I mentioned, or Susie mentioned, that we received word that the region would be coming to the CPC to request additional fundings for the version of the project that is now being pursued, which is a reorientation of the track and with an installation of a grass field with appropriate irrigation in the center of that track. So, does anybody have any comments, questions, Bob?
I just want to say I'm going to vote against this because I don't think it's appropriate use of, I know a lot of people may not agree with me on this, but I don't think it's an appropriate use of our community preservation funds that are being designated as used for recreation to build a track, which would not really contribute to any recreational purpose for town of Shutesbury's citizens. So, I could see a playground at the school would fit that description in my mind, but in my mind, this doesn't. It's a stretch, and it stretches beyond credulity for me. So I'm not going to support it. The other thing is they could have built the track without reorienting it for the money they had, and they decided to reorient it, which I didn't think was necessary or essential for the benefit of the school or the students. And one of the reasons they wanted to reorient it, if I recall correctly, is they wanted to be able to have other towns compete in tournaments in Amherst. And I don't see that's a necessary requirement from my standpoint. I think they could have done a good job of raising the grade of the existing track and its existing orientation with grass, not PFAS laden astroturf. But I would have supported that, but not this money from our CPA.
Okay. I'll just make a couple of comments, just I think somewhat in response, which is that I think, there's a question, right, about sort of what our role is here. I think I think I understand you raised a couple of different objections, Bob, but one of them is about the appropriateness of this project for using CPA funds. And I find it sort of hard to see how the finance committee ought to override a decision that the CPC has made. Obviously, they've deemed this to be an appropriate use of their funds for this project and are recommending or sponsoring it. And so I think our role, I think if we had objections about the financial implications or management I think that would be potentially an appropriate reason to object to this. But I think the concern about whether this meets the criteria, to me, that seems like a job for the CPC. And I think they've obviously made a decision that they think this is appropriate. So I'm not persuaded by that, just that one point. Anyway, that's my comment. Jim.
Has Leverett and Pelham agreed to this? Does anybody know whether they've gone along with the same?
Pelham has
Becky?
agreed, I know.
Yeah.
I know
What?
Pelham has agreed.
Yes.
I don't
And-
know about Leverett.
Okay.
We do ours.
I just want to briefly respond to your comment, AJ. I understand where you're coming from. I understand your point. But I just want to say, if we're not, if it's not appropriate for us to weigh in, why are we voting on this? I mean, I think it is
Oh,
appropriate.
It's
That's
a
fine.
financial issue.
That's
No, I
fine.
think I think it's appropriate. Like if you thought this was a wasteful use of funds, and I think the second part of your sort of argument was about like whether this is necessary and appropriate kind of expenditure. I think that is something that's appropriate for a FinCom member. I was speaking to the first part of your argument, which was really objecting to this being an appropriate kind of category or type of project for CPA funds. And my thought is that that's not our role, that's specifically the CPC's role to determine. I'm sure that was the first thing they probably discussed was, does this meet the criteria for using these funds? And so that was the part that I think sort of falls beyond our sort of role. Jim?
Yeah, and our CPC did agree to this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
There's a sponsor, I guess, I don't know if it's appropriate to say sponsor, but yeah, they're bringing forth this project or this warrant article. April.
Yeah, I did attend that meeting virtually, and there was no question among the committee that this was an appropriate use of funds. So it was fully supported by the CPC.
Kathy?
So would that be something that would be included on the line where it says that FinCom recommends, CPC recommends as well, or?
So I believe, Becky, you can clarify, I believe the CPC is going to be the sponsor of this. So they will actually, I mean, the select board will read the article, but then the CPC will speak to I think that's the plan, right, Becky?
Yes. Sorry, AJ. I was trying to correct your version. Of course, I can't.
Okay.
But I will be correcting this version. Sorry.
Okay.
136. So it's Community Preservation Committee recommends.
Okay, so that will be
I mean, is
sort
the
of
sponsor, and then
is the sponsor, right? Yeah. So I think to answer your question, Kathy, it will be explicit that this is sponsored by and recommended by the CPC, and then depending on how we vote in a minute, there'll be this comment about whether the Finance Committee recommends it. Susie?
I can see saying the CPA sponsors this, and then they bring it to the town to vote. And
yeah,
am I mixing up the lines?
I think the CPC is viewed more as a manager, and that it's really the school department that is the sponsor.
Okay, and but it is that the CPC doesn't, it says this is a project that meets the criteria for CPA. And here, town, you can look at it and you can vote on it at a meeting, is at an annual meeting or a special town meeting. So that
the real sponsor is the regional school committee.
okay.
I see. Okay.
And what was the count? So it was everyone except for, so it was at 6.
We haven't actually
We
voted.
haven't voted. We
You
We
haven't-
haven't
haven't
voted
voted
yet,
on it.
Becky. No.
Okay, so I should
Mhm.
calm
Just-
down.
Yeah, hang on for 1 second. Any other comments? Any other discussion about this? Okay, I will make a motion for the Finance Committee to recommend approval of Article 2.
I'll second.
Okay, any further comments? Bob?
Groves, nay.
Ming Wei, I abstain until I hear from Leverett about what they're going to do. I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Salvador, I.
And Stein, aye.
So I don't know how we usually
Four.
write this. Do we do 4
Four,
to
one.
1, 1? Okay.
It's like a
All
phone.
right. Yeah, right. Okay. So let's see, Article 3, we've already voted on. This is our article. Oh no, this is the select board.
So that was
Article.
6.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
should be
this should be.
6.
So Becky, I don't know if you're also making changes on your end, but this should be 6-0 because George was absent at the joint.
She
Right.
Right,
fixed.
and we're talking about the
Okay.
20,000.
Correct.
Okay,
That's,
so that was
Article 3.
6 because George isn't here tonight.
Right.
Free
Oh,
cash.
no.
So this, we already voted on this one at the joint meeting
Right.
on the 22nd. And,
So
but
it-
there were 6 of us there, so it was 6-0.
Okay. And the correct sponsor should be the select board. Yeah, because they are the ones asking to augment the town administrator line for a transition.
All right, I'm just gonna update. All right. No, it's not the school committee, it's the
Regional. Just
regional
region.
school.
Just put regional.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna just put that, okay. All right. So next up is our article. So are we considered the sponsor for this one? Not the select board, since we're asking, okay, so,
Yeah.
Yes.
all right. All right, and we did vote on this and at our, I guess we voted at our 15th meeting. And was that fixed? Nothing, I can't remember. Let me pull up
George was not there, right?
right. Well,
So
was he?
6
No, wait a minute.
I'm just gonna pull
I
up
think
the,
he was
George
here on the
was there.
15th. He was
No,
here on the
I-
15th.
actually that, yeah, I'm just pulling up the minutes. So everybody was there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Uh,
and everybody voted yes, I think.
Correct.
yeah, so that should, that'll be 7-0. All right.
Okay.
Just need an apostrophe at finance committee, George. I mean, AJ.
Sorry, say that again?
Sponsor, you need to gather in finance committee between 2 apostrophes. Right? Finance committee, you have one at the end,
Parenthesis?
parentheses, right? Sorry.
On this sponsor?
You put that sponsor, you put it all inside the parentheses, okay. Sorry.
It's all
Okay,
set.
no problem. All right, so, okay, Article 5. Okay, so this
Article
is
5
not
has nothing financial.
nothing financial, and then the
It's
Article 6 that
the-
you're adding is not, so we're done then, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I can just get this all in one line. Oh,
All right. Becky, I'll send my version, just, it's probably, you probably already made the changes in yours, but just in case, I'll send mine to
okay.
you as well. when
I'll
we
print them
wrap up.
both and double check them.
Okay. All right. So that is that. I think one topic I wanted us to discuss tonight was, we had started to draft some questions for the superintendent, in preparation for December, early December Four Towns meeting. Let me pull up the minutes and I'll share those again because those questions are captured. In the minutes. All right, so. Okay. So this is kind of a, I think when we ended this discussion on the 15th, I said, you know, we should all think about any additional questions that we want to pose. Okay. And so I'm just looking at my notes. I had a slightly, yeah, no. Okay. So follow up on the idea of pausing school choice. What are the superintendent's intentions? What will be the ramifications? Okay. What are the ramifications of pausing school choice for FY26, right? Okay. And then I just want to kind of slightly tweak the second one because I think this came from my suggestion. So I think we want to request that the ARPS finance team apply or calculate the assessment schedules using the modified statutory method. And I think I just want to add to the scenario 1 and 2 budget amounts, right? Because that's the point, is that we want to have them start with the budget number, right? The final number that they posted as scenario 1 and 2. And then working backwards from that number, now apply the modified statutory method to that without guardrails. I should say that too, maybe. Just to see what the distribution of assessments would be for each community. Does that make sense to folks? Is that helpful clarification? Okay, all right.
Yeah, with the intent, with the intent that we'll see that at the meeting.
Yes,
Let that be done
exactly.
prior. Yeah.
Yes. So this is a set of questions and requests that we are sort of formally like asking them to do in advance of the next 4 towns meeting. Okay. Okay, now, 3 was, I think, George's suggestion that they calculate the scenario that has no FY26 increase, but keeps the 6% base from that was implemented for FY25. Okay, and then the next one was calculate the assessments for each town using 2.5 and or 3.5 increases from FY24 to FY25 and FY26. Okay, I remember this. I'm not sure I totally followed what the sort of overarching point, but I think it's clear enough here, and I think George was onto something, so I'm gonna leave it. Bob.
And just for clarification for me, when we're talking about point 4, we mean using base before the 6%. What's the starting point for that calculation?
I think his idea was right. Like, let's work backwards and say, where would we be at this point now for FY26 if we had done a 2.5% annual increase in for each of these fiscal years, right? Or a 3.5%. I think that the point was to, I think, was to sort of demonstrate where would we be right now if that was sort of the like, what would the deficit look like now for FY26 if we had done that in the past? I think that was the point. Yeah.
No, I see that, but it was not clear when I first glanced at it.
So the base is FY24.
Right.
Right. Exactly. Yes. All right. And then are there what infrastructure modifications to the high school will be required for the consolidation of middle and high schools?
Need something about projected cost in that line, because that's an important aspect to it. I mean, it's going to cost to do those changes.
What are the projected expenses for making these modifications?
Yeah, because there's going to be savings, but that balanced against the expense.
Yeah. Okay. Of course, yes. Um, yeah, and I think there was some, I'm a little bit confused about this, but I think there are at least some people who seem to think this was actually formally studied at some previous point, right? I mean, that was the context in which this question had come up, I think, at the if I remember from the recording at the Four Towns meeting. So yeah. All right.
And the-
Yeah, go ahead, Becky.
Oh, it's just the sprinkler system was the onerous $1 million problem
Mm-hmm.
in the original estimates.
Right. Okay, Susie.
Because we're a finance committee, all of these questions are very oriented to finances, and that's totally appropriate. What I don't know is how to voice our our concern that we need to have a healthy surviving school. Sort of, it's like, it's not just about arranging deck chairs on the Titanic, it's about making sure the thing floats. And so, you know, I could list a lot of things that are important
right.
to keeping it to be a financial option to compete with charter and choice. And I don't think it's right, it's not appropriate for those things to be listed, like a world language program, sports, blah, blah, blah. That's not what we need to do, but I'm not sure. In some ways, I feel we didn't push to have enough fiscal support for the school. And we allowed cuts to be made over many years. So I don't know if there's another statement that says, do all this, think about all this, but think about keeping it as a healthy school. She did say she wants to get it so that it can be a basic education. That's how she was saying it. But I feel like somehow for myself, I want to say, and we want to support the school fiscal survival.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand the point. First of all, I don't like just personally, I don't like the idea of this notion of a basic education. I feel like in some ways it sort of undercuts that the idea that, you know, we do have we do have a school that I think is offering a better than, as somebody who has had, you know, has a kid in the regional schools right now, has had two that have graduated. Like, it's a better than basic education. I think her point though is, I understand, is that like there's a threshold where like we can cut and we can cut and we can cut, but there's a point of no return where like you're now essentially not meeting your obligation to provide a sort of benchmark kind of like baseline quality education. I think I just have a reaction to the language basic, but I understand your point.
I
Susie.
guess the language I'm thinking is something that ends with, we want to fund the school so it can compete with charter and choice and succeed, or something like that. That's what's, because I don't feel like our questions go there, and there really isn't a statement part, and you know, we'd have to talk about it as a committee what that statement would be.
Yeah. So I do think I have a question that's kind of related to that, Susie, which is, to what extent have we studied the issue of why we lose X number of families to charter schools? Like, do we have, as a district, do we have a good understanding of where we're failing to compete, at least with respect to that subset of families that are making an active choice to not send their kids to their own home.
Maybe
district.
that could be number 6.
Mhm.
Asking for the data or the understanding of what we are competing against, or, blah.
Mhm. We have about why families choose to send their children out of the district. I'll clean this up later, but yeah. But yeah, maybe that is a way to kind of frame this as a question, which I think we're probably all quite curious about, right? Because like it's if we have some analysis, some understanding of what services or what qualities those families are making that decision based on, then we can actually have a discussion as a district about, okay, can we actually offer, like, is it possible and advantageous for us to offer those services? And I mean, maybe the answer is that, those are really not, like, there are certain things that we don't think we can provide, but like, without the information, it's kind of hard to have the discussion. And part of the long-term strategy, right, is to develop this innovation school or offer some kind of an educational model that might compete. So if we're going to do that, we need to kind of know, we're going to have to do some sort of market research on sort of what's driving those decisions. Yeah. So I think that is a good question for her. Susie.
And then, I'm thinking about our budget goes to pay for transportation.
Mhm.
It's like, that's not a expense we can change, and it's not what the charter and choice schools have to pay. So it's
Right.
funny how our dollars are being
Mhm.
allocated, and some of them it's by state law.
Mhm. Yeah. Right. On the subject of other questions that we might want to ask, I had maybe this is too general, but I did think it was important to ask, like, are there any other restructuring, like school restructuring models that are being looked at? Like, we've only heard about a 7 to 12, but the answer might be that there are no other ones, but I think it's worth just getting an answer to, like, have there been other kinds of school restructuring models or frameworks that have been considered? Does that seem worth asking? Bob.
You're muted.
You're muted, Bob.
I wanted to introduce a different question, so I'll let you continue your discussion.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'm just gonna write this one. Are there any other school restructuring models that are being looked at? All right. Go ahead, Bob.
I just thought it might be interesting to ask her to sort of fill out or to expand on the idea of using the existing middle school building for a Voc school or something of that matter. To see if there's any more elaboration on that concept that they can bring forward at this meeting.
It's about how the middle school
Utilized, right?
building can be utilized. Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. So I think next steps are that I'll clean up some of these newer questions. And then I think what I want to do is reach out to the district, request a meeting, and then I was going to ask Susie, since you and I met with the superintendent previously, if the rest of the committee thinks this is appropriate, I was going to ask if Susie and I could meet with the superintendent and to discuss these questions. And we would submit them via email in the in the email requesting the meeting. Does that seem appropriate to the committee? Okay.
And
All right,
would you,
so I think-
would you submit these questions as part of the email so they have the questions
Yes.
before you meet? Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be the idea. We'd like to follow up on our previous meeting. The Finance Committee has had some follow-up discussions. After the Four Towns meeting, we've generated a list of questions that we think would be helpful for our members and potentially other communities. Here are the questions. Would you be able to spend, 30 minutes discussing them with Susie and I? That kind of thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
You should
Susie?
probably CC that to the finance people too.
Yeah. So do you mean the finance staff?
Yeah, Shannon.
Yes.
And
Okay.
Katie.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good. And Nibe also, right? It should probably go to the four of them, right? Is that her name, Nibe?
Yeah,
The-
maybe. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, so I think that's it. I did watch.
Should we vote on
The,
this?
Oh yeah.
Should we vote?
It's a good question. Do we need to vote on this? I wonder.
I think so.
It's
I don't think we're
not
taking
gonna
like any kind of.
request.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think it's a
Taking a
sort of
position.
formal. Right. Yeah. Bob.
It'd be a good idea to send it to the other towns, to the other finance committees or school boards or whatever, so they're aware of what our questions are, because they might be willing to discuss some of these points at the meeting. It might be useful in that respect.
What do people think? Does that seem
Yeah.
like a good idea? Okay.
Well,
And that way
it's
we might,
like the administration usually collects ideas from the different parties and then answers the group. I'm not sure. I guess it helps them know what questions we're asking, but
Yeah. Yeah, I think the only clarification is like I would be reluctant to send this to like the full Four Towns meeting. Like right, so that seems a little odd to do that. So who would I be sending it to? Would it be just like the Amherst Finance Committee? Like maybe it's just the finance committees? Yeah, maybe that's what it could be. I could CC the other three finance committees. Since this is coming from the Shutesbury Finance Committee, that does feel appropriate. Okay, yeah, makes sense. Okay, I did watch the most recent regional school meeting. There was not a lot of budget discussion. That there is a fiscal sustainability committee, and they said that they would be putting something on the agenda for the next meeting. So I think the next meeting might have some important information. So I'll keep you posted on that. All right, I think that's it on regional school budget stuff. Okay, next on our agenda is department head outreach. So I think, Susie, can you remind me our budget letter? What was the deadline we gave folks? Was it October 30th?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll pull it up over here.
Okay. So I put this on the agenda in part thinking about, okay, Becky's, transition. And I think it's good for us to kind of do an outreach to folks and just to remind them of that letter and our expectation, and for them to include you or in any questions they have about the process. So I was going to suggest that everybody kind of reach out to their assigned committee. What should we say, next week at some point? That seems so the 30th, technically the deadline will have just passed. And so, yeah, so if everybody can reach out, does everybody know, I think, who they're, so we've got Bob on highway, Susie on fire, April on police, me on treasurer, accountant, collector, Jim on MLP. I think that's it, right?
AJ,
Am I
you have
missing any?
assessors too.
Assessor, yes. Treasurer, accountant, collector, and assessor, right. Okay. Highways Bob, right. Okay, Susie.
I did reach out to Lenny,
Mhm.
and he has had some medical issues. So I don't know if we feel we could offer him a different date. I don't know if he's going to need a different date, but he's up on November 12th on the schedule now.
He
So,
Okay.
should not be attending a meeting.
right, yeah, that's what I thought. So we might think of offering him an alternative date.
Okay, I'm gonna pull up the,
Which I can ask him,
right,
if we understand that that's an important thing to do, offer him an alternative date, I can then ask him
sounds like it, yeah,
what date he could make.
yeah. Maybe we could give him December 10th as an option?
You should go out till January, I think,
Okay.
realistically.
All right. So if we're gonna go to January,
He might be able to come when the accountant and collector come,
yeah,
which
those are usually
that's
pretty,
January 21st, and we're switching the school to the 4th.
yeah. All right, so can you ask him about the 21st then?
Yep, I will.
Okay. All right. All right, so this is what the schedule looks like right now. Okay. All right, so folks will, Bob, sorry, see your hand up.
On terms of the highway department, which is scheduled for the 12th of November, I did meet with Dave Grenier, Grenier, I don't know how you pronounce it, but anyway, I met with him. And I brought a lot of documents over, and he had gotten some other documents from Becky, I believe. And so I think he had a handle. I gave him the budget, which showed the level of funding for the highway department over time. It's like, I think it's starting with FY23, maybe. The budget document that I gave him showed that, and showed the snow removal and other expense lines. And then I showed him the expense report for this year, and we discussed it all. And he was supposed to, hopefully he's going to get back to me this week, but if he doesn't, I will definitely get in touch with him next week and meet with him to see if we can come up with a draft for that meeting and report to you all if it's not going to work.
Okay.
I think we're going to try to come up with a draft for that date.
All right, okay, thanks, Bob.
Did he get signed up? Was he under contract or?
Yes, the contract was successfully negotiated last night. It's not signed yet, but it will be at the select board meeting hopefully on Wednesday, tomorrow night,
Tomorrow. Mhm.
tomorrow.
Good. Okay. All right, any other questions about follow-up or outreach, I should say, with Susie?
I have sort of a process suggestion. I
Mhm.
find it helpful when information shared. So when Bob said, share the questions with the other towns, so that when they come to the meeting, it doesn't start cold. It starts with, a discussion. When I was dealing with the school committee last year, at some point, which now, of course, I can't remember when, I shared with them that the 2.5% increase for our revenue for FY25 would be 152 or whatever it was. And I feel like having a bit of an index is helpful. I also said there's other revenue that comes in, new growth, state aid, which hasn't really been an increasing revenue stream, and rural aid. And that's how we got the pieces sort of on the table and we looked at it together. And I feel sharing information sort of in a collegial way or a cooperative way, collaborative way helps, because you're coming from, you have a more shared view. So it's not like we can know right now what 2.5% will be on our numbers. And we can start talking about that. And I feel like it helps in our communication. So I don't know at which point it would be helpful. I don't think it's something you drop on people like, oh, and then we have to, we're limited
Yeah.
to blah, blah, blah. I think it has to be a positive part of the discussion.
Bob?
I just respond to what Susie's remarks. I agree with you about communication. But I want to say that what I've said to Dave, for example, was, we have Proposition 2.5. We have growth. So that should add to that number of increased revenue for the town. But we as a policy, as a finance committee, have tried to provide a level services budget. That's our basic guideline to him. So he has to look, when he's looking at his budget, it's going to be some things going to be more expensive, including labor, but also some of the materials and so forth. But he has to bear in mind that there is a limit. And so look at the budget over history over time, look at the actual expenses and how they might change year to year, and then try to prepare a draft that respects the fact that there are other departments are going to be asking for money too. And they're going to have different demands or exigencies than he does. So I think he understands it. I think it's not that complicated for a department head. It's what they have to understand if they're running a department in a small town. But that's the kind. And then again, those parameters, they do provide some structure when he's preparing his budget.
Okay. Susie?
So I see that not as a but as an and that we have not ever provided the $2.5 amount ahead of time. And we're not telling them, so that's all, that's your money and you can spend it
Right.
all. We already say in
That's
the
the
letter.
key, yeah.
We already say in the letter, we're looking for level services. We already say that we're concerned about the impact. But what I feel is if we sort of contextualize that number and add that information in, we are helping develop a more shared perspective.
Right. Okay. All right, that was helpful. Let's see. I think the only other topic I have is expense report review. Let's see. And I think the most recent one I had, I thought I just downloaded it. I think we got October 10th. Is that the most recent one, Becky?
I think another one is just finished, but I'm not sure I got a copy of it.
Okay. Do folks want to wait until we see that one, since October 10th is almost like 2-3 weeks ago? What do folks think?
We could wait till the next meeting. Or what is our next
Yeah.
meeting?
Our next meeting is
November 12th.
November 12th. So that is the first date we've got for one of our budget reviews. So we will have time because we're just doing, we think we're going to do the highway department's budget review. So yeah, we can wait till then. April?
Well, as we're sort of winding down this meeting, I'm highly aware that this is the last meeting that Becky will be at with our finance committee.
Yes.
And I've also been thinking that November 19th is going to be the first time she actually gets to sit down on the floor and be just a citizen in this town. And I don't know what medication we can give to help through that. But I just want to say that, you know, all the years off and on that I've been on the finance committee, the select board, all of the things that I've been part of, and this FinCom in particular, you are just going to be missed. You know, your guidance has been helpful, your wisdom, you know, the fund of information, and I think it's a happy, sad time. You know, it's happy. You know, I think Sunderland is very lucky to get you, and I think it's sad for this town. But I just really wanted to thank you from the very bottom of my heart.
Here, here.
Thank you so much, April. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a very simple move, but it's happening.
Mhm.
And I will, my heart will be here. But it's a wonderful community that I'll be working into. So I am very excited to meet the new community, and I am just so appreciative to all the work you guys have done over the years and figuring out, compromising, making this town financially sound has been critical to the town's survival. So thank you all. And I'm call Shutesbury home, so I'll see you at town meeting.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Becky. Yeah, I don't have as much experience serving as April and Susie and Bob and Jim, but I've learned a ton from you about how our town operates, and I've leaned on you quite a bit. So I appreciate everything you do for me personally and for the committee. So thank you.
And selfishly, if you find out something that Sunderland's doing that will make all of our lives easier, please share.
I will.
Yeah.
I will. And there have been a couple of different things I've touched upon, but there'll be more. I mean,
Great.
I've got some vague ideas at this point, but nothing. But I'm sure I have very little exposure
Yeah.
outside of an interview. So I will share. I will communicate.
Terrific. Okay, I think, are there any other sort of updates or news from any other committees or anything else to share before we wrap up? Okay. All right, seeing no hands, I will make a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Second,
Bob,
Moves on.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Salvador, I.
And Stein, aye.
Okay.
And Torres, adios.
Adios.
Yes, thanks, Becky.
Happy trails.
Bob, give me a heads up if you learn that the highway is not going to be ready on the 12th, because that's our next meeting. But yeah, okay.
I don't know if it's
All right.
share this, but we're going to be meeting respective interim TAs, Kathy and myself, with some
Yeah.
members. I don't know who yet, but this week.
Oh, good. Okay, so that process has started. That's great. Good.
And it's not just started. They're hoping potentially to wrap it up by next week.
Great.
Or potentially, well, we've scheduled a meeting for Monday night if that's going to be workable. And if it's later in the week, we'll schedule.
So there are multiple candidates that are being talked
Yeah.
to. That's great. Good.
We've received resumes from 2 so far, but there's still time.
Yeah. Great. Good. All right.
Great.
Take care, everybody.
Hey, Jay, I'm not going to even mention what's going
Yeah,
on.
please. I was hoping I could sneak out of here without
Yeah.
somebody bringing up the Yankees. All right. Take care.
Oh, you're
Bye.
just mean, Bob. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
No.